Beneath the crimson skies of hell, where the winds shriek like dying souls and the rain burns the flesh from bone, there stands a fortress unlike any other, a black monolith birthed from blasphemy and fire. This is the Iron City of Dis, a vertical nightmare of shrieking metal and grinding chains, belching forth endless plumes of corrosive smoke. At its poisoned pinnacle looms the Howling Keep, where no light dwells and no mercy is known. Here, upon thrones sculpted from the skulls of martyred saints, convenes the Infernal War Council, a conclave of unholy might. This is the court of the Seven-Headed Serpent, where the greatest of the fallen rule. Each member is a living sin, a god-devil embodying one of the 7 mortal sins: wrath, envy, pride, gluttony, greed, sloth, and lust. They are the Serpent Heads, supreme generals of Hell's eternal war against creation. And yet, despite their immense power, the court is no seat of stability. It is a boiling crucible of betrayal and ambition, where even the mightiest devils are ground beneath the wheels of infernal politics. The hierarchy shifts like molten glass, and the thrones are rarely warm before a new claimant emerges, crowned in flame and soaked in the blood of their predecessor. Throughout the Iron City, the rise and fall of these archdevils are marked by towering statues, graven images of the Serpent Heads, built by shrieking yoke fiends and blind slave priests. But no monument lasts forever. When a new power ascends, the old idols are torn down, shattered into rubble, and fed to the Hellforges to be remade anew. Only one among the 7 has endured without interruption: Mammon, the gluttonous god of avarice, whose grip on the serpent crown of greed has never faltered. Mammon's dominion is absolute, his vaults bottomless, his tongue dipped in gold and poison both. The others, however, are locked in constant warfare: barons, dukes, marquises, princes, and pretenders, all fighting tooth and claw to ascend. In the Court of the 7, a single vote can change the course of the Great War. The Council rules by majority, and alliances are as fickle as flame. A prince of hell may rise through bribery and carnage, only to fall with a whisper, undone by whispered envy or a single missed offering. When they fall far, wings torn, names struck from the infernal ledger, thrown into the pit to claw their way back from nothing. Each crown draws countless aspirants, but the true path to power lies not only in conquest, but in corruption. The might of a devil waxes with the number of mortal souls they ensnare. The more heretics cry their name in darkened cathedrals, the stronger they become, and the more sway they hold within the court. And yet, not all thrones are filled. Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies and Devourer of the Blessed, is the uncontested master of gluttony, but he scorns the court. He wages his war through rot and plague, sending forth the Black Grail and its cancerous legions to feast upon the world. His seat, the hungry throne, lies empty, a lure for lesser devils who battle endlessly to prove themselves worthy of it or die trying. When the gate of hell was first torn open by the ultimate heresy, when the false Templars shattered the covenant and cast open the rift, the war bands of the court surged forth in a tide of iron and blood. Long before the Heretic Legions took form, it was the serpent-headed banners that swept across the Levant, Asia, and Europa, laying waste to all who stood before them. Cities burned, rivers ran red, mortal kings wept as their armies were annihilated like brittle straw before a wildfire. Only at Antioch and behind the Iron Wall were the serpent heads finally checked, and even then only by miracle and massacre. The cost was unspeakable. Even in defeat, the court triumphed. For when the black gates were flung wide, mortals gazed upon the lords of sin and worshipped. These were not devils, they cried, but gods, saviors, deliverers, liberators from the tyranny of heaven. The wicked were spared and raised high, becoming the first of the heretics. As years passed, they numbered in the millions, and now cities rise in the shadow of the Hellgate, their streets slick with incense and blood. The soldiers of the court are creatures of paradox, both of flesh and spirit. They walk the earth without transgressing the sacred covenant of hell. Their presence is tolerated not because it is just, but because it is legal in the twisted contracts that bind cosmos and chaos. Yet the court is shrewd. They send only limited forces, preferring to let mortals do the dying. For every soul that rebels against the faith, the court grows stronger. The fabric of the god-tyrant's plan frays further, and the serpent coils tighter around the throat of creation. Their campaigns are not dictated by mortal logic. A warband might fall upon a defenseless village, not for land or plunder, but to slay a newborn destined to become a saint. A devil commander may slaughter his own allies for some ancient grudge or forgotten slight. Entire heretic armies have been destroyed not by the faithful, but by rival infernal factions. Those who serve the court do so in terror and awe, accepting betrayal as the price of failure. There is no loyalty in hell, only power. And in the court of the Seven-Headed Serpent, even that is fleeting. Praetor field commanders of hell's forgotten legions, among the scorched fiefdoms of the archdevils, where time falters and screams twist on the wind, march the praetors, demonic commanders and magistrates of ruin, appointed to lead infernal cohorts across hell's shifting borders. At their feet, yoke devils assemble, bearing cursed standards and rusted chains. Hell knights, bound by pact and brand, kneel in mute obedience. To mortal eyes, these towering beings may appear to be devils incarnate, agents of Lucifer himself, but such claims fall short of the truth. In reality, praetors are hybrid abominations, born of devil and beast, spawned from unions with jackals, hyenas, or carrion beasts whose essence thrives in blood and betrayal. From their animal mothers, they inherit bestial strength and instinctual cruelty. From their infernal fathers, cunning and malevolence. Yet their mortal taint denies them entry into hell's inner courts unless they rise through centuries of war, deception, and sacrifice. Standing as tall as war beasts, they are born with 4 faces, a divine echo of their fallen seraphic lineage. One face, always human, is torn away at birth by the midwives of Lilith, cruel nursemaids of hell, in a ritual of desecration. This mutilation leaves them with 3 faces, each with its own mind and voice, capable of whispering contradictory truths, weaving spells of persuasion and madness through a blasphemous triad of voices. Each voice speaks with hypnotic cadence, tempting mortals with half-truths and alluring lies. Their wings are not angelic, but predatory, feathered in the manner of their beast mothers and lined with fanged mouths. When blood is spilled in their name, these mouths vomit gore, fueling their goatic rites with fresh human suffering. Through this gruesome communion, praetors unleash forbidden magic, spells of binding, corruption, and mass delusion. Despite their impure heritage, the praetors are indispensable. Being part beast and not true devil, they can walk the mortal world without breaching the covenant of hell, that ancient pact which restrains full-blooded devils from open war on earth. As such, praetors often lead reaping crusades and infernal hunts, slipping into the world of men to sow chaos, while heaven watches helplessly from afar. They are conquerors, judges, priests of the profane. Where a praetor marches, the skies blacken, and the air trembles with whispered heresies. They do not merely wage war, they bring damnation with purpose and precision. Auxilia, sorcerer wielders of goetic secrets and whispered cataclysms. The Auxilia sorcerers of the court of the Seven-Headed Serpent are neither wholly alive nor truly dead. They are shards of fallen seraphim, fragments of divine light shattered in the Great Rebellion, suspended eternally in the moment of their fall. Bound by despair and purpose, they drift across the blasted wastes of hell, their feet never touching the earth. Where they pass, they chant in mad tongues, psalms of entropy and invocation, channeling blasphemous magic etched into their twisted flesh. Each sorcerer is a living conduit of goetic power, warped to match their arcane needs. Their bodies are experiments in sorcerous adaptation. Some bear many arms for simultaneous casting. Others sprout extra heads to chant divergent spells in harmony. These mutations are not afflictions, but refinements, often self-inflicted or imposed by the dark genius of the archdevil they serve. Their very presence bends the air, and in war they act as both advisors to pritors and commanders of demonic war bands, wielding power that defies mortal comprehension. High above the plains of screaming souls, in towers that claw at the black sky, sorcerers gather in chambers of smoke and madness. There they study tablets of damnation, ancient relics carved from the bones of creation, hidden atop hell's ever-mutating mountains. These infernal relics are found only after decades, centuries, even millennia of searching, guided by blind seers and mad soothsayers who decipher whispers from the screaming void. Once a location is divined, the sorcerer must journey across hell's ever-shifting terrain, fending off beasts and illusions until they reach the mountain's cursed peak, and must climb it alone. Most never return. Others return transfigured beyond sanity. If successful, they present the tablet to armies of scribes and infernal translators. A single error in interpretation can destroy entire keeps, wiping whole fiefdoms from existence in seconds. But if the spell is understood and mastered, the sorcerer becomes an avatar of apocalyptic power, able to shatter armies or bend minds with a single utterance. Each sorcerer eventually specializes in a sin school, aligning their entire being with one of the 7 deadly sins. Pride weaves blinding glory. Wrath births storms of flame. Lust dissolves will. Gluttony consumes essence. Envy slithers unseen. Sloth decays thought and time. Greed binds and enslaves. Over time, they become one with their sin. Their very breath a curse, their gaze a hex. These are no mere spellcasters. They are philosophers of perdition, alchemists of damnation, and priests of the broken cosmos, whose every word reshapes the world in hell's image. Hunter of the left-hand path, stalkers of the forgotten shrines, and slayers of the primeval beasts. In the haunted wilds beyond hell's mapped domains, where the laws of creation fester and warp, roam the solitary and feared hunters of the left-hand path. These cloaked wanderers of the court of the Seven-Headed Serpent walk unseen through the primordial hinterlands of hell, tracking beasts whose names are older than sin, and committing sacred butchery upon their still-living prey to read the tangled skeins of fate. Entrails become oracles, viscera the pages of forbidden prophecy. Every kill is both augury and offering. Their path is one of secrecy and solitude, marked not by banners but by invisible ley lines, arteries of power that pulse beneath the scorched surface of hell. These hidden routes connect shrines and ruins of civilizations so ancient that even archdevils cannot recall their names, remnants of fallen thrones and battlefield relics buried in ash and bone. Here, amid shattered idols and burned-out temples, the hunters perform lonely rites, genuflections to forgotten gods, whose immense and alien might still lingers like a breath in a tomb. To become a hunter, one must undergo the armament rite of pandemonium. At the center of the iron furnaces of the demon city Blacksmiths hammer infernal nails, each etched with curses in dead languages, into the flesh of the hunter's left arm. Over time, the arm reshapes, warps, and mutates, becoming a living weapon, often forming into a demonic bow of bone and sinew. Its ammunition is no less cursed. Arrows formed from the hunter's own corrupted blood, tipped with venomous enchantments. Some kill, others paralyze. Some drive the target into madness, forcing them to relive their final death endlessly within their mind. Their cloaks are sewn from the pale hides of oracle beasts, massive stargazing entities that wander the burning plains of hell. Even in death, the eyes of these beasts remain alive, blinking gently from the hunter's cloak, watching for danger and whispering truths from beyond time. With this cloak and their living weapon, the hunter becomes more than an assassin. They become an omen made flesh. When the Devil Lords call for war on Earth, they must petition, not command, the hunters. These enigmatic stalkers obey no banner, no hierarchy, preferring the silence of the wilds to the politics of Hell's courts. Yet, when they choose to answer, they do so with devastating precision. They traverse no man's land and the mortal world as easily as they do Hell, for the ley lines they walk are mirrored in the cracks of fallen creation. To hunt alongside one is to glimpse a deeper, older Hell, one that predates thrones and councils, where gods died screaming and never rose again. When the court of the Seven-Headed Serpent rides forth in hunt or holy war, the earth trembles beneath the march of their Hell Knights, silent, towering sentinels clad in eternally burning banners and bound in cursed steel. These are the bannerets of Hell, the champions of the court, summoned only when amusement turns to bloodsport, or when mortal kingdoms foolish enough to resist the serpent's nobility must be brought to heel. Each Hell Knight is a thing of unspeakable majesty, twisted into nightmare, a sacred form deformed beyond all comprehension. Heretic priests whisper conflicting origins. Some say these warriors were once lesser angels, Ishim or seraphim, who gazed too long into the mirror of their own beauty. Others claim they were mortal warlords, granted infernal ascension for bloody deeds beyond reckoning, only to fall afoul of the erratic whims of their demonic patrons. Cast from the golden palaces of the pit, these damned beings were not unmade, but remade. The alabaster purity of their divine or heroic forms was folded, crushed, and chained into itself 1,000-fold over, until what remained could be caged within their baroque armor prison. Their once holy bodies now pulse behind slitted visors and iron seals, veins of fire, eyes of piercing light, blasphemous mouths uttering inverted scripture, and organs that twitch and sob, gibbering within the tomb of steel. To glimpse even a fraction of their true form is to go mad with awe and revulsion. Within their hollow helms, pride still burns brighter than ever, a pride no longer divine but poisoned, warped, and unrepentant. They suffer the company of mortals only because they must, and any show of disrespect is met with instant, spectacular annihilation. Though smaller in stature than their original exalted forms, bent and broken to fit into the confines of their armor prisons, they remain overwhelmingly powerful. Their swords blaze with hellfire, their voices crack the stone, and when they ride, the air behind them smells of brimstone and broken sanctity. Their minds, once vast like starlit firmaments, are now locked in eternal blood dreams, every thought a sharp shard of hate and lost memory. Their sanity, if it can be called that, has narrowed to a single purpose: to serve their masters with relentless, murderous precision. They walk the mortal world as devils suffer in heaven, tormented by the cold and silence of earth, their alien forms always at odds with creation's lesser order. Even diminished, they are gods of war to mortal eyes, implacable, silent, invincible. To challenge a Hell Knight is to insult the court, and to do so unprepared is to earn a death so final it echoes through the bones of your descendants. The yoke fiend branded slaves of flesh and fury, towering over mortals and demons alike. The yoke fiends are monstrous laborers and frontline beasts of burden, creatures of brute strength, sorrowful ruin, and bitter obedience. They stand 7 to 8 feet tall, clad in their own trembling layers of muscle and glistening fat, etched with burnt-in brands, the work of hell priests who carve their flesh like canvas, marking them as property to be broken, reshaped, and used. These towering fiends bear bestial traits inherited from centuries of degradation and cursed breeding. Twisted horns like those of sacrificial bulls, the hooves of damned goats, and limbs like those of apes. Dense, bone-heavy, and perfect for carrying siege weapons, hauling corpses, or pulverizing flesh in combat. Each yoke fiend is a living siege engine, bred for strength and reduced to instinct. They wear their agony like armor, but their most haunting trait is not their bulk or brutality. It is their shame. Somewhere deep within the scarred soul of each yoke fiend is the memory of what they once were. Radiant, noble beings of celestial origin, cast down and twisted by the machinery of hell. They cannot look into mirrors or water's reflection without falling into violent despair, for in that shimmering truth lies the memory of a lost glory they can never reclaim. Used as shock troops, executioners, or heavy haulers for the court of the Seven-Headed Serpent, they are both tools and tragedies, monsters and mourners. Many serve willingly, having long accepted their fate. Others weep as they kill, their tears mixing with the blood of the innocent, staining the earth with sorrow and ash. Though often dismissed as dumb brutes by their demonic masters, a spark of divine intelligence remains buried deep within their minds, flickering like a dying coal. On rare occasions, one will remember and rebel. The court ensures such awakenings are swiftly and mercilessly extinguished. The wretched, the damned of flesh and chain, the wretched are the living currency of hell, the lowest of the low, used and discarded by both the Heretic Legions and the court of the Seven-Headed Serpent. They are not born into damnation. They are dragged into it, screaming or silent, captured in raids, abducted from battlefields, bought in the choked slave markets of heretic domains, or seized during tragic forays into forbidden zones where the world bleeds into hell. No matter how they fall, all become wretched. Their fates are gruesome and manifold. Many are worked to death in the soul-grinding factories of the 66 lords, their bodies broken and their spirits crushed to power infernal engines. Others are butchered for meat, sustaining demonic feasts and heretical rites. Some are tithes of flesh, paid by the heretic priests to their demon overlords in place of gold or relics. To the hellbound, these slaves are both coin and commodity. Yet there exists a twisted path to survival, a choice between chains and carnage. Some wretched, desperate beyond measure, volunteer to serve in the Heretic Legions as penal troops. These cursed soldiers are the first to die and the last to be remembered. Branded with flesh-eating tattoos and drugged with concoctions that shatter memory and dull fear while preserving rage, they are used as living shields, hurled into battle without armor or hope. Their deaths are considered acts of piety, offerings to their captors' infernal gods. Worse still are those sold or handed over to the court of the Seven-Headed Serpent. For these poor souls, even death is a mercy rarely granted. Lacking even a single drop of demonic blood, they are used as test subjects, pain fodder, and disposable troops. Their minds are flayed by the horrors they witness, still living sacrifices in goetic rituals, tortured to fuel spells, or possessed and puppeteered for demonic amusement. Captured during the court's hunts or delivered by pact to the Hellgate, they are marched through into a realm that defies sanity, and what emerges, if anything, barely resembles a human being. They are the nameless, the forgotten, the wailing choir of flesh beneath hell's grinding gears. And even in death, the echo of their suffering feeds the ever-hungry powers that rule the darkness. Pit locusts, the winged plague of the Seven-Headed Court. When the court of the Seven-Headed Serpent moves to war, their coming is not heralded by drums or fanfare, but by smoke and dread. The sky blackens, the air shrieks, and then comes the buzzing, a terrible flesh-vibrating hum, as the pit locusts descend in their terrible multitudes. Grotesque and horse-sized, these winged abominations are covered in chitinous armor, pitted and cracked from countless battles. Their limbs end in rending blades, wet with the ichor of the damned, while their venomous stingers twitch with anticipation. Their faces, twisted mockeries of human visages, leer with sadistic glee, echoes of a time before they became monsters. Some whisper that the pit locusts were once angelic beings, lesser Ishim who, in a moment of unspeakable betrayal, fell into depravity. They drank deeply from the blood offered to Baal and Moloch, reveling in the slaughter of innocents until their minds fractured and their wings blackened with guilt. They became beasts, forsaking wisdom for bloodlust, forsaking heaven for the pit. Others say they were sealed for eons behind the bronze gate of filth, forgotten beneath the layers of hell's deeper oubliettes, awaiting the one who would turn the key and loose them upon the world. Whatever the truth, when the Hellgate yawned open, they surged forth in terrifying swarms. In the early days of the Great War, the pit locusts were instruments of devastation, crucial to the conquest of the Levant. They scattered human formations like leaves before a storm, tearing through defenses with animal cunning and predatory delight. For their part in the bloodshed, the court rewarded them with a place in their sacred hunts, granting them the right to feast on the souls of the fallen and rend the spoils of war. To encounter them is to witness the deep hunger of hell made flesh, a swarm that knows no fear, no command but its own cruel instinct, and no purpose but destruction. Desecrated saint, the fallen light, entombed in blasphemy. Among the most prized horrors in all of hell, the desecrated saints are not merely weapons. They are trophies of divine failure. Once chosen by the divine to become saints, prophets, or vessels of holy power, these individuals were led astray, their sacred paths twisted by pride, despair, or the poisoned lure of martyrdom. They waged wars when peace was demanded. They performed rites they believed holy, but which called down curses instead of miracles. In their pursuit of righteousness, they committed abominations, often believing it was the will of God. When their lives ended in disgrace, they awoke in hell, not as mere souls, but as the centerpieces of towering, unholy reliquaries, monuments to their betrayal. These reliquaries are built from the bodies of their loyal followers, those who vowed to serve them even unto death, and from the greatest enemies they vanquished in life, collected and fused over centuries into a walking cathedral of corpses, armor, and tarnished relics. The saint remains trapped, fully conscious, their awareness bound in eternal witness to their ruin and the cost of their hubris. The body of a desecrated saint grows with each age, as they stride across battlefields in service to their infernal lords. They collect the spoils of holy slaughter, the shattered shields of paladins, the swords of martyrs, the relics of vanquished clerics, mocking the Tower of David with its 1,000 bucklers, now twisted into a tower of damnation. To the archdevils, these blasphemous juggernauts are symbols of infernal prestige, and competition is fierce to see whose desecrated saint bears the most splendor, whose relic body is most terrible to behold. When the court of the Seven-Headed Serpent rides to war, a desecrated saint often accompanies them, not just as a siege engine, but as a walking sermon of damnation. Where the saint walks, the laws of God unravel. In their presence, down becomes up, armor turns brittle, and the righteous falter. Holy water boils, prayers fail, faith withers. Armed with defiled relics and wielding once sacred weapons now blighted with demonic sorcery, the desecrated saint brings forth hell on earth, not as a brute, but as an eternal sermon of corrupted divinity.